business definition. Just this week, we've introduced legislation that will tackle late payments for small businesses. That will inject another £11 billion into the economy. This is a government that is on the side of businesses, whether they are in urban or rural areas, whether they are large or small.
Miraz Hamilton, Mr. Speaker. Over 95% of Cornish businesses are small or micro businesses. We're a hotbed of innovation and agility. But these Cornish businesses have been supported over the last 10 years with EU Objective 1 funding and then shared prosperity funding, both of which have ended, and there's zero chance of Cornwall joining an English mayoral combined authority. So can the Minister outline how we can protect and develop our innovative and agile micro and small businesses?
I'm extremely grateful. He's describing businesses that are the lifeblood of the British economy. The innovation that flows from it is vitally important. DEFRA's Rural Task Force is taking a strategic view of the challenges faced by businesses in rural areas, and I imagine that the one that he mentions will be in scope of that. Business Growth Service also includes growth hubs, which are across the UK and supporting businesses in rural areas so that they can get the growth into their business that they need.
Julian Smith.
Question number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. The government's call for evidence on the opt-out collective actions regime closed in October of last year, with almost 100 responses received. I welcome the input stakeholders have provided, and we are committed to economic growth and robust competition enforcement, including private enforcement. It's good for business, it's good for consumers and the economy. A consultation will be published as soon as possible, and my officials will be happy to work with the honourable gentleman to discuss this work further.
So, Julian.
I think for that answer, I think it's really important, as she said, that the collective regime continues. We've got a great reputation globally for our opt-out regime. Just as follow-up, the litigation finance industry is vital to supporting claims from consumers. The government said last year that it would proceed with a bill to restore a legal issue following the Packard judgment. Does she have an update on when that bill will come forward? Because it wasn't in the King's speech.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question again, and particularly with the PACAR review, these are complex issues, as he knows, and it's important that we take the time needed to get them right. Great care is being taken to ensure proposals for the opt-out collective actions balance the need to preserve a route to redress with consumers while ensuring a proportionate regime for business. And as I said in my previous answer, we're really happy to discuss with officials further.
Ben Maguire.
Question number 9, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are helping SMEs do more trade with European countries by taking down tariff and other trade barriers in our EU-UK summit, reducing red tape in individual countries, enabling easier business travel and the mutual recognition of professional qualifications both across the EU and bilaterally, and I look forward to him welcoming that.
Maguire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I always welcome the cutting of red tape, and I await the details excitedly. My North Cornwall constituent, Hannah Willow, runs 2 art businesses. Prior to Brexit, around 30% of her sales were to customers in Europe. This has now fallen to 10%. And as a result of recent tariffs on trade, her exports to the US have also declined by 20%. Now, adding insult to injury, the de minimis threshold will be removed from the 1st of July this year. This means items valued under €150 entering the EU will no longer be exempt from customs duty and will incur a flat €3 fee per item. Will the government take up the Liberal Democrats' call to negotiate a bespoke customs union and finally put our small businesses back at the heart of our economy where they belong?
No, I'm not going to take any ideas from the Lib Dems on this, I'm afraid. I think I can pretty much unite the House in that matter. But what I do want to do, I mean, one of the things that I'm very keen is that we do maintain our position as the second largest art market in the world. That means that we do have to negotiate better agreements, including with the European Union. That's one of the things that we're doing at the moment. He makes a fair point about the de minimis rule. But I noticed that other businesses in his constituency are doing well. Tarquin's Cornish gin is doing well. It's been winning awards in the United States of America and elsewhere. Best gin in the world, I understand. And of course, the work that we're doing on critical minerals with my honourable friend is is bound to benefit Cornish lithium. We're very keen to make sure that we have that capacity in the UK and not just being processed in other parts of the world.
Boris Curtis.
Mr. Speaker, question number 10, please.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I will answer questions 10 and 16 together. Since publishing our steel strategy on the 19th of March, we published provisional product scope and quota volumes for the new steel trade measures, further reduced electricity prices for steel companies from the 1st of April through our network charging compensation scheme uplift, confirmed some steel companies will be part of the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme, announced new transparency requirements on the origin of steel in public procurement, set up a cross-government working group on scrap, and introduced today the Steel Industry Nationalisation Bill.
Boris Curtis.
Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for that very helpful answer. Last week, Seven Global announced a £100 million investment into Seven Steel UK in Cardiff, a site I recently visited. So does the government agree that this investment shows that our plan to prioritise a modern steel strategy is paying off for jobs and growth, whilst putting working people in Wales and the UK first?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do indeed agree. The £100 million investment from Seven Steel is welcome news. But I met with the owners of that business and they told me that they were only able to release that investment because of the confidence they had in the government's approach following the publication of our steel strategy, a direct correlation between government action and £100 million worth of investment in Cardiff. I know my honourable friend has been a strong advocate of the steel industry, and there is an opportunity for members of the House to decide whether they are on the side of the steel industry or not later today. And so I encourage the opposition. I know it's difficult when there's a bill with the word nationalisation in it, but please put your ideology aside just for a moment and get behind the steel industry this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I put on record my thanks to ministers and the department for their ongoing excellent engagement on the steel strategy with me and my local businesses. But many of the downstream businesses in my Stourbridge constituency currently import products including zero carbon steel which aren't currently produced in the UK. So what steps is he taking to ensure that businesses like mine are not unfairly disadvantaged by the quotas and tariffs being introduced under the steel strategy in a few weeks' time?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend, and I also thank her for raising particularly the issues with businesses in Stourbridge when we met earlier this week as well, and I'm happy to continue to work with her on that. The measures that we've introduced, primarily to protect the UK steel industry, are targeted at those steels which are made or can be made in the UK. There are sometimes difficulties where a product code covers multiple steel grades, but that's what the quota system is intended to deal with. And of course, there is a review in 12 months' time.
Kit Malthouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to the question from the Honourable Lady and my question to the Prime Minister yesterday, I'm sure the Minister is aware that lots of businesses, manufacturing businesses, are frankly screaming about the damage that these tariffs are going to do in 5 weeks' time. Can I ask him please to consider an extension of the transition period to 2 years to allow three things to happen? One, for UK steel capacity to grow to cover the gap. Two, for quotas to be set correctly so that UK businesses are not disadvantaged in the absence of UK production capacity, but also three, so that it can work out how it can be fair that somebody importing steel into the UK to produce a product pays tariffs, but somebody importing a finished product from overseas, made from the same steel, does not face tariffs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I mean, first of all, I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for his comment. I believe that we've had representation from Stanley Stairlift, which is a company in his constituency. First of all, I think it's important to say that the government takes action like this reluctantly, but ultimately there are distortions in the market around steel, and the EU having taken action themselves would lead to the UK becoming a dumping ground for cheap steel flooding in from overseas. So we've taken a very carefully balanced approach. We've consulted very carefully with the industry, and I'm continuing to receive representations. But as I said, there is an opportunity for a review of the measures in 12 months' time.
Victoria Collins.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Speaker, can I gently but urgently reiterate actually the questions from the last two honourable members, because I have Sam, a constituent in one of my constituents, has raised dynamic metals. He has an independent British supplier working on specialised steel metals for aerospace, motorsports, industries that we absolutely have to be championing in this country. From the 1st of July, his business will see an import go from 0 to over £3 million. That is pretty much insurmountable, and the impact that will have on industries that we must champion is potentially awful. So will the Minister please consider actually the questions of the previous members, but also looking at extending that deadline and meeting with my constituents, and it seems many others, to understand the full impact of this, so that we can really stand up for our industries and support our steel partners as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm not familiar with the situation with dynamic metals, but having a discussion on the front bench there with my right honourable friend, the Minister for Trade, I'd be very grateful if she would write to him, and he will look very carefully at the matter that she's raised.
Senator Minister Dame Harriet Bowen.
Yeah, I'm going to carry on the same theme because it is very clear from all sides that there are real issues about this element of the steel strategy, which is the imposition of a 50% tariff on the 1st of July. It is affecting manufacturing businesses up and down this country. It is being done in a way that is threatening not only jobs in this country, manufacturing jobs in this country, but it is being done in a way that is going to increase inflationary pressures. So can the Minister tell the House what impact assessment he has done on the effect on inflation and the effect on jobs of these measures?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I mean, I would sort of reiterate the point that this is the action that this government's taken here has been to correct an issue in the market. We have obviously taken very wide representation. In fact, we amended the list as a result of some of that representation. But the point that she's making about inflation goes exactly back to the point that I made earlier before. We cannot be in a position where we say that as a country we are prepared to buy the cheapest thing, wherever it is made in the world, to the sacrifice of our own industry, and allow foreign governments' industrial policies to drive our own industrial policy. And that's why we have taken this action, similar action to that was taken by the EU as well. This comes down to a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of British industry, like the government, or are you on the side of overseas industry, which seems to be the case, being prosecuted by the opposition?
Bradley Thomas.
Number 11, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pubs in Bromsgrove are vital to the local economy, supporting jobs and bringing communities together. I welcome success stories such as the Gate at Bourneheath, named Bromsgrove, and the Villages Pub of the Year 2026, highlighting the strength of the sector. The Government is committed to backing pubs, with permanently lower business rates for eligible retail, hospitality and leisure properties, and additional 15% relief for pubs. We've also significantly increased the Hospitality Support Fund to £10 million to help businesses invest, grow and remain resilient. And that fund will help over 1,000 pubs to diversify their business models, improve efficiency and productivity in the sector, and support people who are furthest from the labour market to move into jobs in hospitality.
Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for her response, but I'm afraid the picture that she paints is not one that pubs across my constituency will recognise. A typical pub in my constituency is paying around £2,500 in additional cost per month compared to 2 years ago because of a rise in energy costs, employment costs and business rates. So if the Minister is serious about supporting the hospitality sector, will the government look at a permanent cut to business rates for pubs and exempt pubs with accommodation from the overnight levy?
Yeah.
I thank the honourable member for his question, and do understand that rising energy prices and the wider supply chain effects can place particular strain on sectors, particularly pubs and the wider hospitality sector, who often quite rely on that discretionary spending and operate on tight margins. I've met with lots of them over recent weeks and know that the current situation, especially in Iran on energy prices, sort of providing a lot of concern for businesses up and down the country. We are considering carefully across government as part of our ongoing assessment of economic conditions and support mechanisms, because we absolutely want to support our pubs and the hospitality sector, who are absolutely vital to our local communities and high streets, and that's why providing that economic stability that we've shown this year to ensure that the economy can keep growing, wages can rise and people can have that money to spend to support our pubs and our hospitality sector is vital.
Sir John Whitting.
Number 12.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The government recognises the vital role hospitality plays in keeping high streets vibrant, driving footfall, supporting local jobs and sustaining town centre services. We know many businesses, including the MyLondon Swan Hotel, Bar and Grill, are still facing real pressures, which is why we have delivered permanently lower business rates for over 750,000 retail, hospitality and leisure properties, alongside a £4.3 billion support package, including transitional relief, helping firms remain on the high street, invest and grow. And later this year, we'll bring forward a new high street strategy developed with businesses to support regeneration and help town centres thrive.
Sir John Whitting.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. But despite what the Minister says, hospitality businesses in my constituency, like those in the constituencies of my honourable friends, are reeling under the impact of higher energy costs, increased national insurance contributions and business rates. And they are making clear that any further increase, they will simply not survive. So why is the government pressing ahead now with another tax in the form of the overnight visitor levy? And will she talk to businesses before proceeding with that?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. He will know that the tax in particular is down to mayoral authorities, and they will work really closely with businesses and stakeholders in making that decision. But here is an important point. I do recognise the significant pressures that are facing pubs, hospitality and breweries who are facing those sustained cost increases. We're closely monitoring the potential impact of disruption of trade and the wider economy, because our priority is to keep prices down for households and for businesses. That's why it will build on our work going forwards to cut energy bills and crack down on unfair profiteering, which our new framework that we've announced, which will help regulators spot trouble early and protect consumers and work with businesses on that. And we're absolutely committed to, understand and recognise the pressures, and that's why going forwards we work with them really closely to support them.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This week I hosted the British Beer and Pub Association in Parliament. They have more than 20,000 members across the country, including Cameron's Brewery in Hartlepool. Among the many issues they raised with me was this summer's Football World Cup. In other parts of the UK, late licences are being permitted for all games, but in England and Wales it's only for England and Scotland games. Will my honourable friend make representations to the responsible ministerial colleagues to allow licences for all games, to back our pubs and celebrate this festival of football?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his question and for raising such an important point today. I'm absolutely looking forward to getting out to the pub and supporting England in the World Cup going forwards, and those licensing points that he's referenced today are really important, and we'll work closely with colleagues across government on that, and thank you for raising it.
We come to topicals. Harriet Cross. Jerome Mayhew.
Question. Thank you so much.
Question number 1.
Number 2.
Secretary.
I'm very grateful, Mr Speaker. Thank you, and I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman as well for not ruining my moment to shine. Mr Speaker, I told the House that I would be an activist, interventionist champion for business. Later today, I am very pleased to say that the Chancellor will announce a funding for 2 of our foundational sectors, ceramics and chemicals. She will be setting out in more detail to the House shortly, but I can say that we are working with industry and experts to provide the targeted intervention that the sector needs. Today's business, Mr Speaker, tells the story. This government stands with British business to create the resilient, growing economy that this country deserves.
Jerome Mayhew.
That economy needs access to oil. Last October, the government announced that it was going to sanction Russian oil and jet fuel. And yesterday, they decided not to, on the same day that they banned new drilling in the North Sea. So why does the government support Putin's Russian oil and not our UK oil?
The thing about a Labrador, when it's got hold of the wrong end of the stick, is it's very difficult to get that stick back off. The truth is, a lot of honourable members have got the wrong end of the stick about what we're doing. We are increasing the sanctions on Russian oil. Up until now, it's been perfectly possible to bring Russian oil products into the UK, processed elsewhere, without any impediment whatsoever. It's absolutely right that we are bringing that to an end.
Mr. Speaker, Carlisle is a great city. It is not, however, Leeds or Newcastle or indeed Manchester. The challenges hospitality businesses face in constituencies like mine are different. In the last couple of months, I have met with two such businesses. One, a pub that has doubled its turnover in the last 4 years, still cannot turn a profit, and another business offering fine dining has only been able to retain a full complement of kitchen staff because their world-leading chef has taken a pay cut. Will the Minister set out how the action the government is taking will help businesses in constituencies like mine, and will she meet with me to discuss the particular challenges?
Order. We are on topicals, please. I've got to get other people in. I'm sure the Minister will have got it.
Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for her question. We recognise the vital contribution of hospitality businesses to the UK, including pubs in Carlisle, in supporting local employment, sustaining high streets and communities, and playing that really important role in cultural and social fabric. I'm always delighted to meet with my honourable friend.
Andrew Griffiths, Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, may I congratulate the government benches on securing the Gulf Cooperation Council. Success has many authors, and ministers on both sides of the House have been part of these negotiations. But a win is a win, and these are our historical friends and allies, and this is part of a growth agenda. With summer approaching, young people graduating, as a direct result of this government's choices, the ONS reported this week that 1 in 6 young people are looking for a job but can't find them. Sectors like retail and hospitality are shedding jobs by the thousand. Will the Secretary of State now finally accept that, well-intentioned or otherwise, the government's got it wrong?
Well, it speaks for itself when the opposition is trying to take credit for government's achievements. It shows just how good this government actually is. But I am grateful for his warm words about the GCC deal. A lot of work went into it, and of course, when we came into office, we were practically starting from the start line because we were so close to it at that moment in time. I'm just going to be really upfront about youth unemployment. This is an issue that really faces most communities in our country, and it's something that we should have much more cross-party support on. I will say this in the interests of an olive branch. As somebody who had a challenging pathway through education into employment myself, I recognise that. But the opposition must admit also, in the 3 years before they left office, youth unemployment went up by 250,000. So yes, we will work together, but it does.
Secretary of State, it applies to you as well as backbenchers, because I'm trying to help your backbenchers get the questions in. We'll hear a very quick question now from Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for his answer. Look, I hope he would agree on a cross-party basis with the Tony Blair Institute, who said the UK must restore dynamism in its labour market rather than impose restrictions like the Employment Rights Act. So could the Secretary of State, who's a good man, at least promise to me that if he gets to serve as a Chancellor in a government led by his friend, the member for Ilford North, he will use that chance to change the government's approach?
Dynamism is increasing in our economy, which is why we have so much growth in our economy that they failed to deliver over their 14 years. When it comes to young people in particular, we have the Youth Guarantee, a 6-month funded programme placement that gives the rich environment that will give those kids who have been put out of work a lot of the time by their government when they were in, back into work, and there sustainably.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bradford is a proud multicultural city, and we celebrate all the good that diversity brings. We speak over 100 languages. I'm sure you will agree, Mr. Speaker, that we have the best cuisine in the country. We hosted an amazing City of Culture last year. We have one of the youngest populations in the country and one of the highest business start-up rates. So can I ask the Minister what further steps this government is doing to boost our economic growth, provide support for our young people and in particular business start-ups?
Very grateful. Of course, just last year I was in his neck of the woods for the investment summit, unleashing further billions into his part of the country. We are also, I know the automotive sector is incredibly important to him. We are pledged to get back to the levels of automotive output that the Tories halved. When we get back to that point, you will see a flourishing, booming industry with the jobs that follow.
Only Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Speaker, according to reports in both the FT and the Times, the government has asked supermarket retailers to reduce the prices of essential food items like milk, bread and eggs. The CEO of Marks & Spencer has described the proposals as completely preposterous. So can the Secretary of State confirm, instead of trying to impose price controls on private businesses, his department is instead looking to reduce the costs of government-imposed burdens on retailers, such as business rates, national insurance contributions and energy costs?
There will be no price cap. There will be no price controls. But I'm not going to apologise for throwing everything in the kitchen sink at the cost of living challenges that we inherited in an economy that was broken.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was delighted to recently host my honourable friend, the Hospitality Minister, at the top of our iconic Blackpool Tower, alongside our Tourism CEO, Kate Shane, to discuss the opportunities and challenges facing our visitor economy. Our tourism sector supports thousands of jobs, yet SMEs locally are being hit hard by rising costs and pressure of seasonal economy. But Blackpool does come to the government not with problems alone, but with a clear, credible plan. So does the Secretary of State agree that coastal towns require targeted economic support, and will he back our proposal to pilot a new tourism zone?
I'm very grateful for his question. Yes, I can say that Little Leighton, in my Honourable Friend's constituency, one of the 379 communities across the UK, will be receiving Pride in Place funding. It is just one of the cross-departmental packages of support that his constituency will be benefiting from. We won't forget. We will keep on supporting him all the way.
So Julian Smith.
Speaker, JB Springs in Skipton has been in touch about this issue of quotas. They import steel. They're worried about the cost of steel in the future for their company. I personally don't have an issue with many aspects of his bill, but this quota issue is really causing problems. So is there some structure for colleagues to come and meet with the department so that businesses can communicate their worries? And can he keep an open mind about the quotas and review these in less than 12 months?
I'm very happy to meet with the company and with himself if he wants to come and see me to talk through all of these issues. I mean, it is really important. If we are to have a steel sector, a steel production sector in this country, we do need to make sure that it has an opportunity to compete with unfair competition around the rest of the world. And that's why we're taking the action we are. My honourable friend made the point earlier that if we don't take this action on quotas and on tariffs, the problem is that we will be dumped on because every other major economy that is equivalent to ours is taking that action. But I'm very happy to look at the precise details with the company and him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've recently met with two local businesses who've been hammered by changes by the Scottish Government to business rates. Osborne Motors, who've seen their business rates increase from £185 a month to £695 a month, and Big Sky Campers in Rosyth that have seen an incredible 470% rise from £180 to £1,025 a month, putting both of these businesses at risk. Will the Minister please agree with me that these are ridiculous rises for small businesses to cope with, and will he assure me he will do everything in his power to...
Please, come on. For a minute, tell me who you don't want me to get in, because that's what's happening when we do this. Secretary of State.
He raises an incredibly important point. The UK government has a support package for England of £4.3 billion to protect ratepayers. The Barnett consequentials, of course, provide support for Scotland, but where the UK government is supporting businesses, the SNP is choking off investment and risking jobs.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's new steel tariff and quota regime due to come in a few weeks means that many businesses face a cliff edge. One in my constituency recently got in touch to tell me that they face a slow death or a swift one, and they face calling in the administrators before Christmas. Will the Minister keep an open mind with regard to extending the transitional period, and will the Minister agree to meet with me and a very small number of my constituents who will be affected?
Of course, I'm happy to meet. Maybe we should organise a meeting for several companies and several honourable members. I'm very happy to do that as soon as possible. I don't want to extend the transition period for the simple reason that the EU and the United States of America and other countries are introducing very similar measures, and the danger is that we would just be dumped. But of course, there will be a review mechanism after a year, and I'm very keen to meet with as many colleagues to explain the trade-offs that we're having to make.
Chair of the Select Committee, Liam.
Thank you very much. The committee is meeting steelmakers later today and will supply the government with its advice from that. But I want to raise the issue of the automotive sector, because we are not going to double automotive production in the way the Secretary of State wants unless we fundamentally reform the ZEV mandate. Automakers are subsidising sales by $5 billion a year. They are transferring money to state-subsidised players like BYD, and battery costs have not fallen. Will the Secretary of State now bring forward a whole market review and reform this ZEV mandate for good?
My right honourable friend, of course, as he always does, gives great voice to the automotive sector. I've listened very closely to the voices of the sector itself when it comes to the ZEV mandate. It's really important that we do so. It's also very important that when we set targets like this, we take into account consumer demand as well as the targets that we set here. This is something I'm very aware of, and I'm having conversations across government with my colleagues.
Speaker, Bath has a thriving hospitality sector and many young people who need and rely on, but dare I say enjoy, flexible part-time jobs to support their studies. Of course, we Liberal Democrats support measures to tackle exploitative contracts. Who wouldn't? But will the government ensure these reforms retain genuine flexibilities that students, but also other members of our workforce need for their work-life balance?
I thank the honourable member for her question. Boosting opportunity and tackling youth unemployment in every area remains a priority, and helping young people into work is absolutely crucial for that. For the flexibility, absolutely. We know some people value that flexibility, and that's why I'll be considering it as part of the regulations.
Jenka.
Mr. Speaker, Cornwall has so much to offer the UK, from critical minerals, floating offshore in the Celtic Sea, defence, geothermal, but infrastructure, particularly ports and rail, will be absolutely critical to enable that growth. Cornwall will be a perfect place to designate as an industrial strategy zone. Would the Minister agree to meet with myself and Cornish colleagues to discuss?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So my honourable friend is absolutely right about the potential in Cornwall. Cornwall is a unique and distinctive part of the country, powered our industrial past, it will power our industrial future, and I will be very happy to meet with her and colleagues to talk more about the opportunities in Cornwall.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The pubs in Spelthorne are under the cosh, and in the answer that the Minister gave to the member for Broadland and Fakenham, she said that a review of pubs and how they are valued for business rates purposes is ongoing. She'll know that that's not going to report until 2029, or not be relevant until then. Pubs are closing today. Young people are losing their jobs today. Please will the front bench do more to lobby the Treasury for our pubs?
I thank him for his question. Pubs in the honourable member's constituency and nationwide are so important to day-to-day community life, and we are mindful of the challenges they face in recent years. The number have fallen by nearly 7,000 since 2010. We know how significant it is, and I'll be working really closely with colleagues to support them.
Adam Jogi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted the government's listened to my calls and those from my neighbours in Stoke-on-Trent to finally act and support the ceramics industry. Calls so loud, Stoke Central's lost his voice. Whilst we await the detail, Mr. Speaker, will the Secretary of State come to North Staffordshire to meet the ceramic businesses that he and this government are helping today?
I'm very grateful for his comments. The package that we will be announcing today will be significant. I won't say any more because the Chancellor will be making that announcement a little later today. But what I can say is that the results of it and the boldness of it is a direct consequence of the voices we have heard from MPs, including himself and those of Stoke, were losing their voice or not. The voice they have given have been profoundly important to the scope and scale and boldness of what will be announced today.
Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, hospitality businesses in North East Fife do support the Lib Dem call for a VAT cut to hospitality, but the government don't seem to be moving on that. So can I ask the Minister whether we consult with businesses on a lower NICS band for part-time workers? They're so important to hospitality and getting younger people into work.
I thank her for her question, and it was a pleasure to meet with her recently in hospitality sector in her constituency. She will know there are a wide range of factors that the government needs to consider when introducing new tax reliefs, and she'll know that they happen in the usual way. And with the alleviation we've already introduced on NICS, they're making a real difference for young people getting into employment, and we'll consider to review that in the usual way.
Mitchell Masson.
Mr. Speaker, in October, Nestlé announced 16,000 job losses, including 450 here in the UK. In the light of the significant impact this is going to have on my city of York, will the Minister ensure not only meaningful consultation happens with the trade unions, but would he meet with them to ensure that we save these jobs?
Yes, of course I would. Yeah.
Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Small businesses on Didcot's Broadway are struggling with energy and staff costs, business rates and a rising tax burden, and the older town centre would benefit from investment and rejuvenation. So for areas such as Didcot that did not receive Pride in Place funding, what suggestions does the Minister have for funding or other forms of support for Didcot's Broadway?
Businesses in Didcot and right around the country need is a fast-growing economy, and that's what we're delivering.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Stafford, we're seeing good growth in our large employers. We're seeing a great skills pipeline come through from our Advanced Technical College. But what we do need is a little support for SMEs. Could the Minister tell me what targeted support is available for towns like Stafford for the SMEs?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. She raises a very important point about support for small businesses, and it's very important for small businesses that their cash flow is protected and they're paid on time. So hopefully she noticed in the King's speech we're going to bring forward our commercial payments bill, which will give us the strongest legal framework in the G7.
Ollie Glover. Oh, sorry, called him. Sorry, you would stay back there.
15 months on from the 15 months on from the £200 million pledged to Grangemouth and 5 months on from the Minister, there's confirmation that prospective projects were being examined and shortlisted. What progress is being made to deliver new industry and jobs for Grangemouth?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So my honourable friend is right. There is a £200 million available for such projects, and the initial £14.5 million of funding that was announced will help businesses to test the feasibility of their project ideas in order to secure that long-term funding from the National Wealth Fund.
Sorbo.
Mr. Speaker, back to the 1st of July tariffs. The quotas are too small, the commodity cost codes are too broad. The steel required for aerospace can only come from, I think, SS UK, which is currently in liquidation. The grade cannot be produced elsewhere. It's for commercial steel. Businesses will be bankrupted within 6 months. 12 months is far too long. Will the front bench please listen to industry on this? Yeah.
Well, we are listening to both sides of industry because there's the downstream users and there's the production. And the truth of the matter is that UK steel production under the previous government fell from 27 million, I think I'm correct in saying this, tonnes a year, to 4 million tonnes a year. We need, if we're to meet our armament needs in future years, we need a sovereign steel capacity in this country. We have to be able to produce British steel, and we have been very careful to make sure that the quotas are cutting only areas where UK can produce that steel.
Lily Jones.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister agree with me that expanding the use of homegrown timber in construction and manufacturing would not only support UK forestry and small businesses, but also strengthen supply chain resilience and reduce our reliance on imports, currently 80%? So what specific measures will they introduce to support this sector as a strategic national asset?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, my honourable friend knows how strong an advocate I am of steel in construction, but I think she's right. There has been a missed opportunity on timber in construction, particularly as many of our hardwood forests are coming to maturity, which means that we will have a real surplus of hardwood in the UK. One thing we will suffer from, though, is downstream processing of timber. So what we need to look at is how we can encourage more investment in the sawmills and downstream processing industry.
Just to say, the first question, Harriet Cross. She was on the order paper. She had withdrawn. I want to reassure the House it was a mistake that was made and we were following the agenda. Hopefully it won't be repeated again by the table office. Right, we'll let the front bench change over. Before we come to the urgent cost on motorists, the urgent question, I'm going to repeat what I've said to the House at the start of the parliamentary session. The government's own ministerial code makes it clear that important policy announcements should be made in the first instance to this House when it's sitting. Some people seem to have very short memories. We've had the last 3 days of this announcement being drip-fed to the media. That is not in line with the government's own rules, and it is unacceptable. These backbenchers of either side are elected to this House to hear it first, not to be outside of Morrison's petrol station, not to be on a bus, not doing it to TikTok. These members should be respected. I uphold this House and I respect the members if the government doesn't. The government's got to get its act together and recognise the value of its own backbenchers. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Sir Melstride, Shadow Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Chancellor of the Exchequer if she will make a statement on the government's plan for the costs to motorists.
Lucy Rigby.
Mr. Speaker, just to note that your comments just then are fully noted, and I'll ensure that they're fed back to the entirety of the ministerial team. Mr. Speaker, the government is taking steps to support households and businesses with their fuel costs in response to the conflict in the Middle East. Rapid de-escalation in the Middle East remains the best way to bring down fuel prices, where the most impactful step is, of course, to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. That's exactly why the UK government is playing a leading role in the international effort to get shipping flowing freely. And indeed, I contrast that with the position of the Leader of the Opposition, who would have rushed us to war. So alongside this key step, Mr. Speaker, so the Boys Club...
Sorry. I can't hear what the Minister's saying, and in fairness, we've put the urgent question in which we can hear the Minister. Look, I'm proud of this Parliament, I'm proud of this country, so I do want to hear it, Minister.
So alongside this key step, Mr. Speaker, the government's priorities will continue to be helping families with the cost of living, including through protecting the public finances. The government's taking action to bear down on prices at the pump, and in November we extended the 5p per litre cut in fuel duty for a further 5 months. Right now, petrol and diesel are 11p per litre cheaper than under plans inherited from the previous government. Some fuels have been more impacted than others by this conflict. We recognise that, and the government also recognises the pressures being faced by drivers and other fuel users. That is exactly why we are introducing a package worth over £400 million, which combines broad support for motorists with targeted support for sectors most exposed to and affected by higher fuel prices. And yesterday, the Prime Minister made clear that we will not increase fuel duty this year. The temporary 5p cut will be extended until the end of the year. And taken together, the government's decisions will save the average motorist over £120 this year compared to plans inherited from the previous government. But we also recognise, Mr. Speaker, that farmers face substantially increased costs on fertilisers and fuel, and that's why we're going further, cutting the duty rate on red diesel by over a third per litre to the lowest rate in over 20 years, and that of course will help other users of red diesel too. And then when it comes to road haulage, this sector, as members will recognise, is vital for transporting goods right across the country, and recognising that key role and the increased costs that the sector is facing, we are introducing a 12-month holiday for vehicle excise duty for the majority of heavy goods vehicles. This will save, Mr. Speaker, a typical HGV over £600, up to £912 on some vehicles, on top of the savings that I just described when it comes to fuel duty. So, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, this is one part of support for households and businesses. It combines universal support for motorists with targeted support for those most affected by higher fuel prices. And my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, will update the House later on today on further support measures for households and businesses.
Shadow Chancellor Sir Molstride.
Mr. Speaker, may I begin by agreeing with you and to say that how disrespectful it is that this U-turn on fuel duty has already been released to the media earlier this week. The news was plastered across national newspapers on Monday, and the Chancellor then conducted a visit to a petrol station yesterday with journalists. But it has taken until today for this House to be updated. This is a pattern, Mr. Speaker, including, of course, the relentless briefings before the budget last year about tax measures and fiscal forecasts. You would think a government with so little support amongst its own backbenchers would have more respect for this place. Mr Speaker, this change to fuel duty is yet another humiliating U-turn from a Chancellor and Prime Minister whose authority is shot. Exactly. The Chancellor fought us tooth and nail on this issue. The Conservative Party has been campaigning for a fuel duty freeze for months. The Chancellor repeatedly rejected those calls, creating unnecessary uncertainty for motorists and businesses. Why did it take her so long to realise that putting up fuel duty during an energy crisis is a bad idea? Does the Chancellor really expect us to believe that this is all only happening, as she has suggested, because of better growth? Let's be clear, Mr Speaker. The Chancellor has been pointing to the slight upward revision in the IMF's growth forecasts earlier this week. That forecast was for growth of 1.0%. But until April, the IMF were forecasting growth this year of 1.3%. So where is the supposed growth dividend? And perhaps the honourable lady could address that momentarily. Is the Chancellor seriously suggesting that the outlook is better now compared to how it looked at the last fiscal event? And on wider measures, Mr Speaker, will the Minister confirm whether what has also been briefed to the press, not to this House, that HMRC mileage rates are to be changed? Mr Speaker, let's be clear. This is a government lurching from one U-turn to the next. Their mismanagement has left our economy weak. The reality is they're in no position to support people through these cost of living pressures because they have mismanaged the economy. They have no credibility left, and clearly they have no respect for this House.
Mr Speaker, put simply, as I said, his party had motorists hurtling full speed towards higher fuel costs. It's only because of the action that this government has taken that we've applied the brake to the hikes that his party would have introduced. They would have introduced, Mr Speaker, higher costs. We're keeping the freeze on fuel duty and protecting millions of motorists right across this country. And exactly as I said, we're taking further measures when it comes to red diesel and for HGV drivers as well. And this is on top, Mr Speaker, of additional action that we're taking on the cost of living. The Shadow Chancellor and I saw each other in the studios early this morning when I was out there talking about the free unlimited bus travel for children that we're going to be. The Chancellor is going to be updating on this earlier today.
Sorry. I'm going to say to the Minister, I don't think it's a good example that we was in the studios rather than telling this out. It's confirming my problem that that Sky or BBC is more important than the backbenchers who've been elected by constituents across this country are hearing it second-hand. It is not acceptable. So don't think it's a bonus to tell the House now.
Speaker, the Chancellor will be coming along to the House later along today, and she's going to...
Order. I think the point I was making was that you said that you were doing the studios. You're here now. I think it should have been here first. Do we both agree, Minister?
Mr Speaker, my apologies. I was intending to say just then that the Chancellor will come to the House and will give a full statement on exactly everything, including the matters that we are discussing today. I'm sorry, Mr Speaker, that the Shadow Chancellor is so upset and so appalled by the recent growth figures. I am in the business of talking this country up rather than down, and indeed I'm grateful to him for highlighting that growth has been revised up. Interest rates are coming down, inflation is coming down, real wages are going up. And as I said, Mr Speaker, this is because of the prudent decisions that this government has taken, all of which is allowing us to take further action when it comes to the cost of living. But this action that we're taking in relation to fuel duty is very, very important, and it's going to save millions of motorists lost money right across this country. I will address, Mr Speaker, the point on HMRC mileage rates. The Chancellor will come to this House, as I said, later on and talk about the full package.
The Ambassador of the Business.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for facilitating this statement. I welcome the announcements on fuel duty, but I didn't hear the Chief Secretary say anything about remedies for the new costs on drivers of electric vehicles. Those new costs imposed at the last budget are suppressing demand for electric vehicles in our country to such an extent that UK automakers are having to subsidise demand by £5 billion a year. That is imperiling the future of UK automakers. It is imperiling the target of doubling automotive production by 2035. So can we have a statement about what the government is going to do to reform the Z mandate and actually get in place a plan that leads to a thriving auto industry and not a dying auto industry?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend makes a very important point, and I know how passionate he is about exactly these issues. He refers to changes that were made at budget, and they were made with the best of intentions and from the point of view of encouraging the use of electric vehicles in this country. I believe the Chancellor may be saying something on that later on today.
Daisy Cooper, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like so many Labour government announcements, the extension of the fuel duty relief later this year is too little, too late. And when we look around the world, other countries are acting now. Other countries are cutting fuel duty now. Other countries are cutting public transport costs now. And that is why we Liberal Democrats continue to call on the government to cut fuel duty and public transport costs now. So what message does the Minister think it sends to people that they'll take action later in the year when they are feeling the pain in their pockets right now? When it comes to farmers, Mr. Speaker, the government will be aware that the cost of fertiliser is going through the roof and world prices are up by 44%. So when the Minister says that there will be a further cut to red diesel, can I ask the Minister what assessment her government has made of the cumulative impact of the war in Iran on farmers? Because it's clear to me that this cut in red diesel will not touch the sides when the cost of fertiliser is rocketing through the roof.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member makes a really important point about the costs that farmers are facing, but that's exactly why we're taking the steps that we're taking in relation to red diesel, which is going to cut the duty by a third, more than a third, and it's the lowest rate in over 20 years. And as I said just earlier, Mr. Speaker, that doesn't just help farmers, of course, that's going to help other sectors too, in terms, including in relation to freight. But I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, as is so often the case, we hear suggestions from the Liberal Democrats, cut this, cut that, you know, try and bring things down. The reality, the reality is that these things are never funded. And if you're going to manage, you manage the
Minister, sorry. The member has asked the question. I want respect given to the Minister when she's answering the question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point is that you have to manage the public finances in a responsible way. You cannot put measures in place which are not fully funded. And I wish that in some of these proposals that were being put forward, they were adequately backed up by fully funded proposals.
Jim McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These are welcome announcements, and I should say to welcome the Chief Secretary to her place. The government also has a very important convening power. And one thing that residents in Oldham raise all the time is just how much they pay for car insurance when compared to other areas. And for low-paid workers, particularly those that need it for business and pay that additional premium, it is a lot of money going out every single year above and beyond what neighbouring areas will pay. So can I ask the Chief Secretary to convene the insurance industry together and see what can be done to finally address this postcode lottery?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important issue, and I'd like to thank him for all the work which I know that he's done in this space, exactly from the point of view of trying to bring down the costs that people across the country are paying. In my old role as Economic Secretary to the Treasury, I was indeed closer to the work of the insurance sector and the work which the current Economic Secretary is now taking forward to try and ensure that prices are brought down. But I'm more than happy to convene with the new Economic Secretary and take forward the work that he suggests.
Thank you, Speaker. Obviously, the Minister is not aware that the previous Conservative government froze fuel duty for 14 years. Otherwise, she wouldn't be coming along. And some of us lobbied for the government of the day to actually abolish the escalator, but we didn't do it. However, could I ask her one key question, and that is, with the rise in the wholesale price of fuel at the pumps, how much extra money has the Treasury obtained as a result?
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid that the honourable member has entirely missed the fact that the plans that his government left in place would have meant that fuel duty would have gone up. And it is only because of the action that this government is taking that means that millions of motorists across the country will save money.
Justin Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I welcome the efforts to support drivers at the petrol pumps? But it's obvious that this has not led to an increase in demand in the sales of electric vehicles. As the Chair of the Select Committee has already said, the automotive sector is facing a real crisis because of the Z mandate. I was at the Vauxhall plant in my constituency last week. There isn't the consumer demand there. There isn't going to be the consumer demand there to meet the escalating demands of the Z mandate. Can the Treasury please use their convening power across government to bring forward the review of the Z mandate?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate, as I said earlier in response to my honourable friend, that this is a really important issue, and I know indeed what an important issue it is to my honourable friend and in his constituency as well. And as I said, I'm more than happy to take this up, and I'll discuss this with the Exchequer Secretary.
David Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Increased fuel costs are a real pain point in a constituency like mine. Rural households that depend on their cars spend nearly £800 a year more on fuel than people who live in urban areas. So will the government listen again to the Liberal Democrats' demands for an immediate 10p cut in fuel duty that would bring down pump prices by 12 pence per litre?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think these suggestions are being made with the best of intentions, but with the deepest respect to the honourable member, this is all motherhood and apple pie. You have to be able to say where this money is going to come from if you want to do these nice things.
Dean Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Minister and my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, for recognising the important role that hauliers and freight play in our national economy and our local economies. The steps announced yesterday are a huge support to 3,500 people in my constituency who work in transport and logistics, and these are the people that keep our shelves stocked and our economies moving. But can I ask that the Minister liaises with her colleagues in other government departments to look at what other support could be made available for the logistics sector, including improved welfare facilities?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important issue in relation to hauliers and indeed the road haulage sector. That's why what we're talking about today is so critical when it comes to the cost that hauliers are paying and vehicle excise duty, which of course is on top of the changes that we're making to fuel duty to save hauliers money. That is part of our recognition of the really critical role that hauliers play in costs, including of consumer goods. So this all fits together, and I recognise that how important it is to her constituency.
Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And rural drivers in West Worcestershire will be delighted that the Chief Secretary has seen the political reality, which is that it would have been mad to put another 5 pence on petrol on the 1st of September. But could she also explain something else that would seem very, very inexplicable to my constituency, which is why we are not allowing oil and gas extraction from our own basin, but we are allowing an increase in terms of Putin-produced oil and gas.
Yeah. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for her question, but I would ask her by reply that if it was so mad, why was it her party's intention to do exactly that when it comes to fuel duty? On oil and gas, we've been very clear that oil and gas will play a part in our fuel mix for years and years to come.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Tories oversaw the only parliament in history where living standards were lower at the end than they were at the start. This government, by contrast, got wages up more in a year than the Tories did in a decade, with growth and inflation rates better than forecast. Does the Chief Secretary agree with me, then, that our economic plan is the best possible when it comes to delivering for my constituents in Erewash, very much including their interests as motorists?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question, and it's because of these fiscally responsible choices that the Chancellor has made that we've seen growth going up, we've seen real wages up, we've seen inflation down and interest rates down as well. And look, these things do not happen by accident. They're because of the fiscally responsible way that the Chancellor is managing our economy. And that is fiscal responsibility for a purpose, that purpose being to support working people right across this country.
Charlotte Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, may I first of all welcome the Right Honourable Lady to her new role in the Cabinet. She was an excellent colleague when she was on the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and it doesn't surprise me that she's the first to ever intake to make it. So it's in that spirit, Mr Speaker, that I hope to be able to help the Right Honourable Lady in marking her career out, because 90% of my constituency is rural, and fuel increases do worry people, and they don't put that money into the economy because they don't know where it's going to go. So could the Right Honourable Lady do something which should have been done under the last Conservative government, but she has an opportunity under this Labour government? Let's just say we're not putting these false figures for raising fuel duty in, because it never happens, and it would be a much better boost to the economy if people had certainty about their fuel costs.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm very grateful indeed to the Honourable Member for his kind comments, and I appreciate where he's trying to go with his remarks. But what we are doing with this announcement is saving the average motorist over £120 this year compared to the plans that we inherited, and in saying, as the Prime Minister did, that we are going to extend the cut until the end of the year, until the 31st of December. We are trying to give people that bit of certainty and that bit of reassurance, because we recognise that family budgets are really stretched at the moment, and indeed that is the reason why we're taking this measure, but plenty of other measures too, to try and help people with the cost of living.
Patricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Chief Secretary agree with me that it's right that we didn't rush into the Iran war, and it's right that our government's plans and actions to support households are responsive to changing events, rather than being knee-jerk reactions which end up causing more damage to our economy in the longer term?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to Honourable Friend for those comments, and I think it just highlights again that the party opposite would have raced to war. And when I said that earlier, Mr Speaker, they all, and they're doing it again, look, they're shaking their heads at me. The reality is the leader, well, okay, so either of two things are true. So either the leader of the opposition said that she would have taken us into the conflict, and she didn't mean it, in which case that's really confused, frankly, or she said it and she meant it, in which case that is demonstrative of really catastrophic judgment. But I would say, Mr Speaker, that either of those things, be it catastrophically bad judgment or indeed deep confusion, neither of those things are ideal qualities on someone that wants to run the country.
The Chamberlain.
Mr Speaker, the Government has repeatedly pointed out to the Fuel Finder website as the best way to keep prices low through competition. But in my own constituency of North East Fife, costs have gone up so much that there's basically no variation between the pumps. And those high prices are crippling for everyone, but particularly local businesses like the fish merchants from the East Neuk, who go far and beyond North East Fife to deliver to customers directly. Driving isn't avoidable for a constituency like mine. And the Government is obviously not looking at the Lib Dem proposals, but why don't the Government offer meaningful support beyond red diesel in rural constituencies? What about EV charging, for example, where often in constituencies like mine, people have to charge away from home because they need their car to get about the constituency?
Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for those comments, and not least the reference. We are, I should say, supporting motorists in a meaningful way, but it's really important. She mentions the CMA's Fuel Finder scheme. Now, the intention of that is to save households that own a car around, it could be up to £40 a year, and she's absolutely right that the key principle behind that is about competition. And we know that competition is the way that we get to greater choice and indeed lower prices for consumers.
Where do we go? David Mundell of
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can the Chief Secretary reassure me that the Treasury does really understand that in rural areas the cost of fuel doesn't just relate to what motorists pay for driving? It affects everything that is on sale in the shops, all goods and services provided, and therefore, rather than trying to put caps on the cost of things that are on sale in shops, the best way in rural areas to help keep costs down is to keep fuel costs down.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for those comments. But I have to tell him that we are not attempting to cap the prices that you see in supermarkets, nor were we intending to. What is happening is that the Chancellor is having discussions with supermarkets, as indeed she is with other sectors, with a view to putting downwards pressure on prices and helping people with the cost of living. Because, as I've said repeatedly, we on this side of the House recognise that there's a cost of living crisis out there, not least because of the inheritance that we receive from the party opposite, and we are seeking to help people with those costs.
Mr Speaker, can I thank my right honourable friend for recognising and supporting hauliers and logistics companies like the Malcolm Group, the UK's leading independent provider of third-party logistics services, who are based in my constituency and support many hundreds of jobs across Paisley and Renfrewshire South. They play such an important role in keeping our shelves stocked and our economies running. But can I echo calls made by my honourable friend, the member for Bathgate and Linlithgow, for us to go further in supporting greater welfare facilities for their drivers? And can I also ask that she make some comment on the safety of logistics staff who too often are manning vehicles that are being targeted by criminals?
Mr Speaker, I'm glad to hear that these measures are going to help the Malcolm Group in my honourable friend's constituency, as indeed they will hauliers right across the country. But my honourable friend, as indeed have others too, Mr Speaker, raises a really important point around welfare, and indeed I think she was alluding to freight crime. And so this is something that I know has been discussed at length in this House. It's something that I'm particularly interested in, given the nature, too, of my constituency. I know that the government is taking forward action to seek to deal with to freight crime and indeed on welfare too, but I'm more than happy to convene a meeting with other ministers and indeed my honourable friends in relation to this issue.
Sarah Patchett.
Very much, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister agree with me that one of the government's main responsibilities is to provide energy security for its citizens? And as a nation resplendent with our own resources, why will this government not issue more licences to drill in the North Sea for oil and gas, which would make us energy sufficient and therefore have a knock-on effect at the pumps?
Mr Speaker, the best way to get to energy security is by doing exactly what the Secretary of State for Energy is doing at the moment, and the push towards renewables. I have to tell her, I'm afraid, that new licences in the North Sea wouldn't bring new oil and gas on stream for another 10 years. So that really is the wrong solution.
Chris Hinchman.
Mr Speaker, the freeze and fuel duty will be a relief to drivers in North East Hertfordshire, but part of the reason why this is such a problem is because after the party opposite's last stint in government, public transport was left virtually non-existent in rural communities like mine. We've discussed earlier this week the enormous cost of HS2, over £100 billion. If we were investing that scale of money in bus services, we could provide a vastly improved network across the whole country for decades to come. So will the government learn the lessons of the current crisis and redirect our public transport spending towards the journeys we need to make in our day-to-day lives?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important point about the critical nature of bus services to the entirety of the country. And that's exactly why we're providing over £3 billion for buses over the next 3 years to cap fares at £3 and indeed to maintain and improve services as well. So that includes funding for local authorities so that they can put in place initiatives when it comes to local fares if they wish to do so, as I believe the North East Combined Authority has done. But we're also making reforms, Mr Speaker, when it comes to bus franchising, which will allow new and better services too.
And Ambassador Chetty.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just want to come back to what the Minister said earlier on about the war in Iran. She knows full well that the Leader of the Opposition did not say that she would take us into this conflict, and she knows full well that the operation was a no-fawn operation and there was never an opportunity for the UK to be involved. And if she doesn't know that, she should go and speak to the defence team and get up to date with the details. But on that, I think is a cheek, considering that the government has just decided it's going to row back on its pressure that it's going to put on Russia. So can she explain exactly why, given her media round this morning, which didn't explain this, exactly why the government has decided to exempt oil and oil products that originate from Russia under Commodity Code 2709, or from 2710?
Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly reject any accusation or idea whatsoever that we are somehow going soft on Russia and on Putin. That is completely wrong. And the new package of sanctions that we've introduced are stronger today.
Sorry. I told the front bench, and I'm telling the back bench, you've had the courtesy of being able to ask a question. I want you to hear the answer, and I need to hear the answer as well, Minister.
The package of sanctions that are in place today is stronger than the package of sanctions that was in place last week. We have a world-leading sanctions regime in this country. At the moment, we have more than 3,300 sanctions of Russian entities, businesses, individuals, ships. The list goes on and on. And why does it go on and on? It's because of our steadfast support for Ukraine.
Speaker, Scotland is an energy superpower, and it's particularly galling therefore for constituents and businesses in my own constituency, which is a 2.5-hour drive end to end, and where road vehicles are an absolute necessity to conduct daily life, to face the prices that they're currently facing. Will the government commit to using the hundreds of millions of pounds of extra tax revenue they've got in VAT to a VAT freeze for the duration of this current crisis?
Mr. Speaker, I won't commit to that, no.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst it's good news that the Chancellor has been forced into another humiliating U-turn over her increase in fuel duty, this just delays the increase until the end of the year. But the cost of living is surging and families are feeling the pinch in every aspect of their lives. So why won't the government simply put people and businesses, give them the certainty they need and cancel the fuel duty increase altogether?
Mr. Speaker, there's absolutely nothing humiliating about taking action that the Chancellor is taking, the Prime Minister is taking, to protect millions of motorists across this country. And again, I'm afraid I have to remind him, the plans that we inherited from the previous government would have seen motorists paying more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome this latest U-turn by the Chancellor to freeze fuel duty, which will help my constituents. And I also welcome the cut in duty in red diesel to help our farmers. The government's carbon border adjustment mechanism comes into effect on the 1st of January. This will increase further the cost of fertiliser, which in turn will push up the price of food. So will the Chief Secretary undertake a review of that carbon border adjustment mechanism to protect all our constituents from further food price increases?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for that intervention, and particularly the highlighting of the moves that we're making when it comes to red diesel, because he mentions the fertiliser costs. Now, we know that those substantially increased fertiliser costs, but also fuel, are hurting farmers. Diesel, so cutting the duty rate by over a third per litre, from just over 10 pence to just to 6.5 pence, which, as I said previously, is the lowest rate for over 20 years.
Mr. Speaker, and can I warmly welcome the Minister to her new role. My rural North Cornwall constituency doesn't have a regular or reliable bus service. It doesn't even have a single mainline train station. So my constituents are forced to rely on their cars to get to school, work, care for relatives, not to mention the transport of goods. I welcome this modest freeze, but please will the Minister meet with me to discuss North Cornwall being part of the government's Rural Fuel Duty Relief Scheme. And while we're there, perhaps I can explain how our excellent Lib Dem proposals are all fully costed.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to the honourable member. I may ask that our meeting, when indeed we do meet, as I'm happy to do so, is fully focused on the matters at hand.
Mr. Speaker, having worked in the oil industry, I understand the flow of oil products around the world quite well, and it's unquestionable that the government has eased the prospect of Putin's oil flowing into the UK's oil market. That's beyond doubt. So 2 questions to the Minister. One, can she explain the Treasury's calculation of the extent to which they think this move may benefit UK motorists? Can she explain why the government has decided to do this? And can she tell us what she thinks the cost will be to the government's integrity and whether it's worth it?
I assume he means, Mr. Speaker, when he says to do this in relation to the licences in the sanctions regime. Yeah, okay, just clarifying. Look, these licences are specific, they are targeted, and they're going to be reviewed on a very regular basis. The reason, and he'll know, given that he understands the flows of oil so well, he'll know that licences are a very, very common part of the sanctions regime. So the reasons that these licences, the reasons that they're being put in place is such that we can stage the impact on the economy. And indeed, if you look at what the European Union is doing in relation to these issues, they're going to achieve a full ban by the end of 2026. They too are staging the impact. So this is a sensible measure when it comes to our economy. But what is not in doubt, what is totally beyond doubt, is the fact of our steadfast support for Ukraine, as I said, and the pressure that we are continuing to put with our international allies on Vladimir Putin.
That completes the urgent question. Let the front benches change over. Come to business questions. Shadow Leader of the House, Jesse Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader give the House the forthcoming business?
Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 1st of June will include Monday the 1st of June, second reading of the Health Bill, Tuesday the 2nd of June, Committee of the Whole House on the Armed Forces Bill, Wednesday the 3rd of June, remaining stages of the Railways Bill, Thursday the 4th of June, a general debate on Pride Month, Friday the 5th of June, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 8th of June includes Monday the 8th of June, Committee of the Whole House of the Steel Industry Nationalisation Bill, Day 1. Tuesday the 9th of June, conclusion of the Committee of the Whole House and remaining stages of the Steel Industry Nationalisation Bill. Wednesday the 10th of June, remaining stages of the Cybersecurity and Resilient Network and Information Systems Bill. Thursday the 11th of June, general debate on the legacy of Joe Cox, and Friday the 12th of June, the House will not be sitting.
Jesse Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's famously true that our present Prime Minister gets 100 times more animated and passionate about the performance of his football club every weekend than he does about trivial details of social, economic or foreign policy, and still more so when it comes to defeating the enemy from Manchester. So one would have to have a heart of stone, Mr. Speaker, not to congratulate the Prime Minister on the success of Arsenal Football Club in winning the Premier League. I noticed the astonishing lack of reaction from the other side. As we United fans say, only 11 more Premiership wins to go, and Mikel Arteta will still be one short of Alex Ferguson. In this World Cup year, we remember with deep warmth and affection the heroes of 1966. I refer, of course, to the band of brothers who were so inspired by England's World Cup victory that they set up Westfields Football Club in Hereford. And I pay special tribute to the legend that is Andy Morris, not ignoring his brilliant wife, Sandra, who has been synonymous with Westfields ever since. Now, Mr. Speaker, whatever happens in Makerfield, it seems inevitable that there will soon be a leadership contest in the Labour Party. The markets are spooked, the pundits are pontificating, the pollsters are rampant. But amid all the media speculation, there is one candidate, one extraordinary dark horse, who has not yet even been mentioned. That is why I am delighted in relation to the leadership of the Labour Party to announce my strong support in his bid for the top job for the Leader of the House. Colleagues will have noticed a certain coyness from the Leader about his own position last week in Business Questions. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, that's the clear sign of a man preparing to throw his hat into the ring. For months now, I have lived myself with I must admit, a secret fear that the government will have a reshuffle and the Leader of the House will be relegated from the light of the chamber back into the Stygian depths of the Labour Whip's office. Luckily, the Prime Minister has remained far too weak even to contemplate a reshuffle. But I ask colleagues across this House, and especially on the Labour benches, to contemplate that hideous prospect, that drastic loss of warmth and wit and wisdom from these proceedings. As Ben Jonson said of Francis Bacon, when he spoke, the fear of everyone was that he would make an end. Now, some foolish and ill-advised people will say that this leadership bid is an improbable one, possibly even in this age of Botox, TikTok and Justin Trudeau, that a Prime Minister should be constructed on more youthful, foolish, inexperienced, and dare I say it, sleeker lines, to which I cry shame, Mr. Speaker, and fie upon these unimaginative gloomsters and naysayers. What fools they are. It's precisely that apparently diffident Clark Kent exterior that makes my candidate, our candidate, such a politically electrifying prospect in a world in which a Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer can seriously advance the total economic shambles of supermarket food price caps. Any move is on the table. The Leader of the House can therefore immediately become Leader of the Labour Party. It's simple common sense. We barely even need to change the name. Mr. Speaker, you will be relieved to know that under my steady hand, the Leader's Labour leadership campaign is ready to roll. The website is in hand, the baseball caps and T-shirts have been ordered. As Hilaire Belloc says of Lord Lundy, the stocks were sold, the press was squared, the middle class was quite prepared. Donors are falling over themselves in order to associate themselves with this extraordinary political intervention. The one crucial remaining question is what campaign slogan we should use. We thought about common sense with Campbell. Campbell for the country, all in for Allen. But there are two slogans with which I think we really cannot fail. And when he responds, I know the Leader will want to take the opportunity of formally launching the campaign himself from the dispatch box, but perhaps he can also indicate which of these two slogans he prefers. Is it to be, yes, we Campbell, channeling the spirit of Barack Obama, or possibly, more inclusively, still, make Britain Campbell again? A nation awaits, Mr. Speaker. So may we have a debate in government time on this vital question.
Leader of the House, but just to remind the House, the most important game is being played on Sunday between Bolton Wanderers and Stockport. Good luck with Bolton. Come on, Leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I see the Leader's had his Weetabix again this morning. First of all, Mr. Speaker, can I extend my sympathies to the family and of Lance Bombardier, Ciara Sullivan, who lost her life in a tragic incident last week. It reminds us of the price sometimes paid by the brave men and women who serve our country so very well indeed. It's also, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the 9th anniversary of the horrific Manchester Arena attack, which claimed the lives of 22 people and left many more injured. And I'm sure all those affected remain in the thoughts of the whole House. And last year, Mr. Speaker, Martin's Law received royal assent, which delivered on our commitment to strengthen the security of public events and venues and help prevent another tragedy from happening. I want to thank all the campaigners who were pivotal in delivering this legislation. Mr. Speaker, at the end of last week, the Treasury announced an independent review on access to banking to assess how changes to in-person banking services are affecting customers. The review will be chaired by Richard Lloyd, who many members will know. This is an issue, Mr. Speaker, which is regularly raised by members with me, and the government is committed to ensuring that everyone has access to the services that they need. Fly tipping is also an issue, Mr. Speaker, that members have raised with me frequently, and the government is listening, Mr. Speaker. Laws laid this week will require waste handlers to provide that they are qualified to transport waste. And we're tightening the net on waste criminals with tougher sentences for those illegally dumping waste and advanced background checks to put rogue operators out of business. Members will also be pleased that we're cracking down on high street crime, rogue barber shops, vape stores, mini-marts and sweet shops linked to organised crime. They'll face raids, closures and cash seizures under a new £30 million crackdown targeting money laundering, tax evasion and illegal working. which again, these are issues that have been raised in sessions such as these, Mr. Speaker, and therefore underlines the importance of the role that members play in influencing future policy and decision-making. Mr. Speaker, I also hope that members will be able to spend time in their constituencies over the recess and enjoy the warmer weather, hopefully, over the next bank holiday. And as an MP for a coastal constituency, I know how dangerous the sea can be, and I want to highlight the RNLI's annual Float to Live campaign. And this year's campaign is being fronted by Ewan Gray from Gateshead, who, with his brother Andrew, got caught in a notorious riptide off my constituency on Long Sands Beach in May last year. And I want to pay tribute to the volunteers of Cullercoats Lifeboat and Tynemouth Lifeboat, and indeed all the RNLI volunteers who tirelessly provide a critical service in coastal towns and villages across the UK. Let me turn, Mr. Speaker, to the remarks of the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Shadow Leader of the House. And I'm sure, as he acknowledged, that his gratitude for Arsenal beating Man City is genuine, coming from a dedicated Man United supporter. I'm sure it was genuine. He also reminds us of the heroes of 1966 and the last time that England won the World Cup. And I should remind the House that England has only ever won the World Cup under a Labour government. And therefore I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to the World Cup which starts shortly. On the other matter, which he seems preoccupied with, Mr. Speaker, about my candidature to be the Prime Minister, let me just say that there is no vacancy for a Prime Minister. But I do thank him for his endorsement, which I'm sure is well intentioned. But I should just warn the House, Mr. Speaker, that there's a double edge here, because every candidate which he has endorsed for the Tory leadership has either failed at the first hurdle or is failing in her leadership now.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. A number of constituents continue to really struggle as a result of Capita's delays in processing their civil service pensions, many of them having been retired without income for months. And I do know the Paymaster General has been holding them to account in various ways, but with Capita continuing to miss its own deadlines, could we have an update from the Paymaster General about what progress is being made?
Mr. Speaker, as we've said before, these delays are unacceptable. It's not the service that people deserve, and resolving this is a matter of urgency. We've mandated a deadline of the 30th of June 2026 for Capita to restore all civil service pension scheme service levels to standard contractual agreements, and the Government will continue to monitor this closely and press for swift action.
Wendy Chamberlain, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have to say, my honourable friend, the member for Carshalton and Wallington, who usually is here for business questions, is probably very glad not to be given Arsenal's success. But it's been very good to see that in English football we are seeing teams succeed who have not succeeded for some time. But it was a different case in Scotland at the weekend, where I congratulate Celtic on winning the league again. But as the wife and mother of Heart of Midlothian supporters, it has been a very difficult week, and I do congratulate them on the amazing season that they had. And I thank the Leader of the House for providing us with the certainty of the business for the next sitting week. It seems to be the only certainty we have. Who knows where we will be after that? The Prime Minister may well still be in post, but it's no doubt that his fading authority is doing the country no favours. We have seen how the bond markets have reacted to this uncertainty and chaos, and I fear this government is becoming a little like HS2, moving more slowly and making things more expensive for people in this country. But while the government lays out its vision, we on these benches believe a crucial piece of the economic puzzle is still missing. We will continue to make the case for closer ties with our closest allies and trading partners in the European Union, and that's a policy that the Labour Party simply cannot quite make up its mind about. And I note that the former Secretary of State for Health has made his pro-EU stall abundantly clear, whereas their candidate in Makerfield seems a little more unsure, despite his previous representations. Now, the Prime Minister's trade deal with North Korea is impressive, and I do trust that he misspoke yesterday, but we Liberal Democrats think that a UK-EU customs union is the single best way to start fixing the profound damage done to the British economy since Brexit. And so I was disappointed that Labour MPs joined forces with Reform and the Conservatives to vote down our plans yesterday for a customs union. Those red lines are deeply damaging to our economy. So will the Leader of the House impress on the Prime Minister that whatever potential leadership rivals think, the government's EU reset bill must include steps to negotiate such a customs union? Because we on this side of the House will keep coming back to that issue whenever we have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Prime Minister acknowledged in real time yesterday, he did misspeak about the trade deal, but he was absolutely clear about our relationship with Europe. There won't be a return to the customs union, the single market or freedom of movement, and the government came into office on that basis. We are clear, however, that it is in the national interest to be closer to Europe. It's good for us and it's good for Europe, it's good for our security, it's good for our economy. And as the Honourable Lady has said, there will be an EU reset bill coming through, and I'm sure she'll be able to put the points that she raises not just to debate but to the test of a vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes children's charity Sunflowers Action Group on winning, by popular poll on my Facebook page, a £2,000 donation from BACTA, the Amusements and Arcades representative body. Sunflowers provides activities, respite and trips for children with life-limiting illnesses, doing amazing work supporting families in my local area, and this donation will help them to continue to do just that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join my honourable friend in congratulating Sunflowers Children's Action Group on their brilliant work supporting children and their families and winning the vital funding. We're also taking action in this area, Mr. Speaker, with our Best Start in Life strategy, pledging to invest £1.5 billion over the next 3 years to support early years.
Bob Blackman, Chair of the Backbench Committee, re-elected unopposed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we approach the end of the domestic football season, it's only right that we congratulate Aston Villa on winning the Europa League last night, and it is